Arthur was a millionaire. Not just any millionaire, mind you, but the kind of millionaire who wore diamond-studded shoes and had a swimming pool filled with sparkling, imported water. He lived in a mansion so big it had its own zip code, or so he liked to joke. He made his fortune in inventing incredibly complicated things that nobody really needed but everyone suddenly wanted, like a toaster that could also forecast the weather or a self-folding laundry basket that argued with you about your fashion choices. Arthur was brilliant, no one could deny that. But oh, was he arrogant. He loved to brag about his money, his mansion, his intelligence, even his incredibly shiny hair. He'd walk into a room and announce, "Well, everyone, the most important person has arrived," and then chuckle to himself, expecting everyone else to laugh along. And, strangely enough, they usually did. Despite his arrogance, people were drawn to Arthur. Maybe it was his wealth. Everyone likes to be around someone who can buy them anything they want. Or maybe it was his strange sense of humor, which, beneath all the boasting, could sometimes be genuinely funny. Or maybe, deep down, people sensed a loneliness in Arthur, a need for connection that his money couldn't quite fill. He had a wide circle of friends, acquaintances, and admirers, all eager to be in his presence, to laugh at his jokes, to bask in the glow of his success. He hosted lavish parties with mountains of food, flowing fountains of sparkling cider, and music that vibrated the very ground beneath your feet. Everyone wanted an invitation to Arthur's parties. It was the place to be seen, the place where dreams seemed possible, if only for a night. Arthur basked in the attention. He thought he was the luckiest man alive, surrounded by people who loved and admired him. Little did he know, his world was about to be turned upside down. The change Arthur didn't see coming arrived in the form of Clara. He met her, not at one of his grand parties, but at a small, quiet bookshop tucked away on a side street. Arthur, believe it or not, occasionally liked to pretend he enjoyed reading. He was there, loudly complaining to the shop owner about the lack of intellectually stimulating literature, when he first saw her. Clara was browsing a shelf filled with old, leather-bound books. She had kind eyes, a warm smile, and wore simple clothes that seemed to glow with a quiet grace. She didn't have diamonds on her fingers or designer labels on her dress. She looked real. Arthur, used to the fawning attention of his usual crowd, was intrigued. He approached her, ready with a witty remark about the dusty old books. But before he could speak, Clara turned to him and said, "These stories hold more wisdom than any headline or stock report ever could." Arthur was taken aback. No one ever talked to him like that. Usually, people were impressed by his wealth and power. Clara seemed unimpressed, almost amused. He stammered, trying to think of a clever response. But Clara simply smiled and returned to her books. He found himself strangely drawn to her. She wasn't like the other women he knew, who were always trying to impress him or get something from him. Clara seemed genuine, interested in things beyond money and status. Arthur, used to getting whatever he wanted, decided he wanted to get to know Clara. He began visiting the bookshop regularly, engaging her in conversations about books, art, and the world. He even started reading some of the books she recommended, though he'd never admit it to his friends. He found himself enjoying her company, her gentle humor, and her thoughtful insights. For the first time in a long time, Arthur felt like he was connecting with someone on a deeper level than just money. As Arthur spent more time with Clara, he found himself falling deeply in love. It wasn't just her kindness or her intelligence, but the way she made him feel seen, understood, and valued for something other than his wealth. He found himself wanting to be a better person, a person worthy of her love. Clara, in turn, seemed to genuinely care for Arthur. She saw beyond his arrogance to the vulnerable person beneath. She appreciated his humor, his hidden intelligence, and his willingness to learn. She challenged him to think differently, to see the world from a new perspective. Soon, they were inseparable. They strolled through parks, discussing poetry. They shared quiet dinners at simple restaurants, far from the glitz and glamour of Arthur's usual haunts. They laughed, they talked, and they dreamed of a future together. Arthur, being Arthur, naturally expressed his love through grand gestures. He showered Clara with expensive gifts, a diamond necklace that sparkled like 1,000 stars, a painting by her favorite artist, a weekend getaway to a luxurious spa. He couldn't help himself. It was his way of showing how much he cared. Clara, however, was uncomfortable with the lavish gifts. She appreciated the thought behind them, but she didn't need expensive things to feel loved. "Arthur," she said gently one evening, "your love is enough. You don't need to buy me things to prove it." Arthur, a little confused, tried to explain that he just wanted to give her the best of everything. He wanted her to have all the things she deserved. Clara smiled sadly. "What I deserve is your time, your attention, and your love, not diamonds and fancy cars." Despite Clara's reservations, Arthur continued to shower her with gifts. He couldn't quite understand her perspective. He believed that if you loved someone, you should give them everything you could. It was a habit hard to break, and, he reasoned, it made him happy to see her happy, even if her happiness wasn't directly linked to the gifts themselves. Arthur's happiness, however, was not universally celebrated. His best friend, Tom, a down-to-earth and loyal companion since childhood, couldn't shake a feeling of unease about Clara. Tom had known Arthur through thick and thin, seen him through countless relationships, and knew his friend's vulnerabilities better than anyone. One afternoon, while playing a round of golf on Arthur's private course, Tom cautiously broached the subject. "Arthur," he began, carefully choosing his words, "I'm really happy that you've found someone you care about. Clara seems like a lovely woman." Arthur beamed, puffing out his chest. "Lovely? Tom, she's extraordinary. She's smart. She's kind. She's different." Tom nodded slowly. "I can see that. But have you ever considered that she might be interested in your money?" Arthur stopped mid-swing, his face hardening. "What are you saying, Tom?" "I'm just saying, Arthur, be careful. You're a wealthy man, and there are people out there who would take advantage of that. I just want to make sure Clara isn't one of them." Arthur scoffed, resuming his golf swing with unnecessary force. "That's ridiculous. Clara isn't like that. She doesn't care about my money. She tells me that all the time." Tom sighed. He knew Arthur's arrogance made him blind to certain things. I know, but still just keep your eyes open. Okay? Just be careful." Arthur waved him off dismissively. "Don't worry about it, Tom. You're just being paranoid. Clara loves me for me, not for my money." Tom remained unconvinced, a knot of worry tightening in his stomach. He knew Arthur was head over heels for Clara, and when Arthur was in love, he tended to ignore any warning signs. Tom just hoped his friend wasn't making a mistake that he would later regret. The seed of doubt, however, had been planted, though Arthur refused to acknowledge it. Arthur's arrogance acted as a shield against any doubt Tom might have sown. He convinced himself that Tom was simply jealous, unable to comprehend that someone like Clara could genuinely love him, Arthur, for anything other than his wealth. He was, after all, Arthur the Magnificent, the man who had everything. Why wouldn't someone love him? He pushed Tom's warning to the back of his mind, focusing instead on his blossoming relationship with Clara. He planned romantic dates, surprised her with thoughtful gifts, though he tried to tone down the extravagance, remembering her earlier comments, and generally basked in the glow of being in love. He told himself that Clara was different. She didn't fawn over his money or his status. She challenged him, she made him laugh, and she seemed genuinely happy just to be in his company. He was certain that Tom was wrong, completely and utterly wrong. The thought of Clara being with him for his money felt like a personal insult. It implied that he, Arthur, was so shallow and unlovable that the only way someone could care for him was because of his bank account. This wounded his pride more than anything. He even started avoiding conversations about money with Clara, afraid that any mention of his wealth would confirm Tom's suspicions, even if only in his own mind. He wanted her to see him, just him, without the baggage of his millionaire status. He decided to prove Tom wrong, not just to Tom but to himself. He would show everyone that Clara loved him for who he was, not for what he had. He would marry her, and they would live happily ever after, proving that even an arrogant millionaire could find true love. and he would be sure to invite Tom to the wedding, just so he could see how wrong he had been. The wedding plans began in earnest, grander and more elaborate than anyone could have imagined. The wedding was, as Arthur had envisioned, a spectacle. It was held on the grounds of his sprawling mansion, transformed into a fairy tale wonderland. Thousands of twinkling lights adorned the trees, and a giant tent, bigger than most houses, housed the reception. A famous band played music that made everyone want to dance, and the food was so fancy, most people didn't even know what they were eating. Clara, despite her initial reservations about the extravagance, looked radiant. She wore a simple, elegant gown that highlighted her natural beauty, and her eyes sparkled with happiness as she walked down the aisle. Arthur, standing at the altar, felt a surge of pride and love. He had never been so sure of anything in his life. Tom was there as Arthur's best man. He performed his duties with a smile, but Arthur could sense a lingering concern in his eyes. Arthur made sure to catch Tom's eye during the ceremony, offering a triumphant grin that said, "See? I told you so." The ceremony was beautiful, filled with heartfelt vows and promises of eternal love. Arthur and Clara exchanged rings, sealing their commitment in front of hundreds of guests. As they kissed, the crowd erupted in applause. The reception was a blur of music, dancing, and celebration. Arthur and Clara danced the night away, surrounded by their friends and family. Arthur made a point of seeking out Tom, pulling him aside for a private word. "Well, Tom," Arthur said, a smug grin on his face, "what do you think now? Still think Clara's after my money?" Tom smiled sadly. "I hope I'm wrong, Arthur."
I truly do.
"But only time will tell." Arthur scoffed, but deep down, Tom's words lingered. He pushed the thought away, determined to enjoy his wedding day. He had Clara, he had love, and he had everything he could ever want. Or so he thought. As the night drew to a close, and the happy couple retreated to their honeymoon suite, a new chapter began, one filled with unforeseen challenges and hidden truths. The honeymoon was idyllic, filled with sun-drenched beaches, romantic dinners, and quiet moments of intimacy. But even in paradise, a seed of unease began to sprout in Arthur's mind. He started noticing subtle changes in Clara's behavior. She began taking secret phone calls, whispering into the receiver and quickly hanging up when he entered the room. She would often disappear for hours, claiming she was running errands or visiting friends, but she was vague about the details. She seemed preoccupied, distant, and less affectionate than before. Arthur tried to dismiss his concerns. He told himself that he was being paranoid, that Tom's warning had poisoned his mind. He wanted to trust Clara, to believe in their love, but the doubts kept creeping in. One evening, he overheard Clara on the phone. He couldn't make out the entire conversation, but he heard her say, "It's getting harder to keep up the act. I don't know how much longer I can do this." Arthur's heart sank. He felt a cold wave of fear wash over him. Was Tom right? Was Clara just pretending to love him? Was she using him for his money? He confronted Clara about the phone call, but she brushed it off, claiming it was a personal matter she couldn't discuss. Her evasiveness only fueled his suspicions. He started following her, secretly tracking her movements. He saw her visiting a rundown part of town, a place far removed from the glittering world of millionaires and fancy weddings. He saw her entering a small, dilapidated building. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The picture-perfect marriage he had envisioned was crumbling before his eyes, replaced by a growing sense of betrayal and uncertainty. He decided he had to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. He resolved to uncover Clara's secrets and confront her with them, once and for all. Driven by suspicion and a wounded ego, Arthur decided to investigate the dilapidated building Clara had been visiting. He parked his expensive car a few blocks away, not wanting to draw attention to himself, and cautiously approached the building. It was an old, run-down orphanage, the paint peeling and the windows cracked. Peeking through a window, he saw Clara inside, surrounded by children. She was laughing and playing with them, reading them stories, and helping them with their homework. She looked genuinely happy, at peace. Arthur, confused, decided to go inside. As he entered, the children looked up, their faces lighting up with joy. "Clara, you're back!" they exclaimed, running to hug her. Clara turned around, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw Arthur. A look of apprehension crossed her face. "Arthur, what are you doing here?" He looked around the room, taking in the meager surroundings, the worn-out toys, and the threadbare blankets. "What is this place, Clara?" "It's an orphanage," she said softly. "It's where I grew up." Arthur was stunned. He had no idea. He had assumed Clara came from a privileged background, like him. You grew up here?" Clara nodded. "It wasn't easy. The orphanage struggled to stay open, and the children often went without basic necessities. So, all those secret phone calls, the disappearing acts, you were helping this place?" Arthur asked, slowly piecing things together. Clara nodded again. "I've been trying to raise money and find resources to help the orphanage. It's very important to me." Arthur felt a pang of guilt. He had suspected her of being a gold digger, but all along, she had been secretly helping children in need. His arrogance had blinded him to the truth. He still didn't know the full story, but he knew he had jumped to the wrong conclusion. Despite the initial pang of guilt, Arthur's arrogance quickly resurfaced. He couldn't shake the feeling that Clara was still hiding something from him. He focused on the phrase he had overheard. "It's getting harder to keep up the act. I don't know how much longer I can do this." He convinced himself that the act Clara referred to was pretending to love him, and the reason she was helping the orphanage was to soften the blow when she eventually left him, taking a large chunk of his fortune with her. Back at the mansion, Arthur confronted Clara, his voice trembling with anger. "So it's true, isn't it?" he accused. "You've been using me all along. That orphanage, it's just a sob story to manipulate me, isn't it? To make me feel sorry for you, so I'll give you money." Clara looked at him, her eyes filled with disbelief and hurt. "Arthur, how can you say that? I've never asked you for anything. I've always tried to be honest with you." "Honest?" Arthur scoffed. "You've been sneaking around, making secret phone calls, and disappearing for hours. You've been lying to me from the start." "I was trying to protect you," Clara said, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want you to think I was after your money." "Protect me?" Arthur roared. "By deceiving me? By pretending to love me? I should have listened to Tom. He was right all along. You're just a gold digger." "That's not true," Clara cried, tears streaming down her face. "I'm done, Clara," Arthur shouted, his face red with rage. "I can't trust you anymore. I want you out of my house, out of my life." He pointed towards the door. "Get out." Clara stared at him, her heart broken. Without a word, she turned and walked away, leaving Arthur standing alone in his opulent mansion, surrounded by his wealth, but utterly alone. His arrogance and mistrust had driven away the one person who might have truly loved him. Clara, now standing outside the mansion gates, leaned against the cold stone, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe that Arthur, the man she thought she loved, could be so cruel and distrustful. She felt a deep ache in her heart, a pain that went beyond mere heartbreak. It was the pain of being misunderstood, of being judged unfairly, of having her good intentions twisted into something malicious. She knew she had been secretive, but she had only wanted to protect Arthur from the truth about her past. She hadn't wanted him to see her as someone who was after his money. She had hoped that, eventually, she could reveal everything to him. But now it was too late. Turning back towards the mansion, she shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "Arthur, you're wrong. I never wanted your money. All I wanted was your help, your influence." She sank to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. After a few moments, she managed to stand and walk back toward the mansion. She needed to explain before she left for good. She pushed the gate buzzer and spoke into the intercom. "Arthur, it's Clara. I need to talk to you. Just for a minute, please." After a long pause, the gate buzzed open. She walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Arthur opened the door, his face still etched with anger and suspicion. Clara took a deep breath and said, "I never wanted your money, Arthur. I swear. All I wanted was to use your influence, your connections, to help the orphanage. I knew that with your wealth and power, you could make a real difference in the lives of those children. That's all I ever wanted." Her eyes pleaded for him to understand. I thought you cared about helping people too." Arthur stared at Clara, his anger slowly giving way to confusion and a flicker of understanding. "You mean, all this time, you were just trying to help those kids?" Clara nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "It's more than just helping them, Arthur. That orphanage, it's my home. It's where I grew up. Those children, they're like my family." She continued, her voice choked with emotion. "I was abandoned as a baby and left at the orphanage's doorstep. The people there took me in, raised me, and gave me a chance at life. They didn't have much, but they gave me everything they could." Arthur was silent, absorbing her words. He had never known such hardship, such selfless dedication. He had always taken his privileged life for granted, never truly understanding the struggles of others. Clara continued, "I always promised myself that when I grew up, I would do everything I could to help the orphanage, to make sure that those children had the same opportunities that I had. When I met you, Arthur, I saw a chance to finally make a real difference." She looked at him, her eyes pleading for understanding. "I knew that with your wealth and influence, you could help the orphanage in ways that I never could. I thought you were a good person, someone who cared about helping others. I thought you would understand." Arthur felt a wave of shame wash over him. He had been so quick to judge, so blinded by his own arrogance, that he had completely misread Clara's intentions. He had accused her of being a gold digger, when all she had wanted was to help children in need. He realized just how wrong he had been. His heart began to soften as he started to understand the depth of Clara's connection to the orphanage and the true motivations behind her actions. The weight of his mistake crashed down on Arthur. He saw his arrogance for what it was. A wall he had built around himself to protect himself from vulnerability. A wall that had ultimately pushed away the one person who had seen through it. He had been so focused on his own wealth and status that he had failed to see the true beauty of Clara's character. He thought about all the times he had boasted about his money, about his possessions, about his accomplishments. He realized that he had been using his wealth as a substitute for genuine connection, trying to buy love and admiration instead of earning it. He remembered Tom's warning, and a wave of shame washed over him. Tom had seen through Clara's kindness and generosity, but Arthur, blinded by his own ego, had refused to listen. He had been so sure of himself, so convinced that he knew best, that he had ignored the wisdom of his closest friend. Looking at Clara, standing before him with tears in her eyes, Arthur saw not a gold digger, but a selfless, compassionate woman who had dedicated her life to helping others. He saw someone who was strong, resilient, and kind, despite having faced hardship and adversity. He felt a deep sense of regret for the way he had treated her, for the harsh words he had spoken, and for the trust he had so easily broken. He realized that he had almost lost something truly special, something that money couldn't buy. He finally understood that true love wasn't about extravagant gifts or lavish parties, but about genuine connection, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. Arthur knew he had to do everything he could to make amends and win back Clara's trust. He also knew it would take more than just an apology. He needed to change. Swallowing his pride, Arthur took a step towards Clara, his voice filled with sincerity. "Clara, I am so sorry. I was wrong, terribly wrong. I let my arrogance blind me, and I hurt you deeply. Can you ever forgive me?" He reached out and gently took her hand, his touch tentative, hoping she wouldn't pull away. "I understand now. I understand why you were helping the orphanage, why it's so important to you. And I promise you I want to help too. Not because you want my money, but because it's the right thing to do." He continued, "I know an apology isn't enough, but I truly am sorry for the way I treated you, for the things I said. I was foolish and arrogant, and I let my insecurities get the best of me. I promise you, I'll do everything I can to make it up to you. He looked directly into her eyes, his gaze filled with remorse and a newfound humility. Tell me what I can do, Clara. Tell me how I can help the orphanage. I want to use my wealth and my influence for good, to make a real difference in the lives of those children. Please, give me a chance to prove myself. Clara looked at Arthur, searching his eyes for sincerity. She saw the genuine remorse in his expression, the humility that had replaced his usual arrogance. She saw a flicker of the man she had fallen in love with, the man she believed was capable of great kindness. She wiped away her tears and said softly, Arthur, I appreciate your apology, and I believe that you truly want to help. But it's not just about the money, you know. It's about caring, about understanding, about being there for those children. She paused, considering his words. If you really want to help, then come with me to the orphanage. See for yourself what those children need. Talk to them, listen to their stories. Then you'll understand why it's so important to me. Arthur took Clara's hand, and together they walked back to the orphanage. He spent the rest of the day there, talking to the children, listening to their stories, and learning about their dreams and their struggles. He helped them with their homework, played games with them in the yard, and even read them bedtime stories. He saw firsthand the challenges they faced, the lack of resources, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. He also saw their resilience, their hope, and their unwavering spirit. He was deeply moved by their stories and inspired by their determination. From that day forward, Arthur and Clara became a team, working together to improve the lives of the children at the orphanage. Arthur used his wealth and influence to secure funding for new facilities, better resources, and improved programs. He renovated the dilapidated building, transforming it into a safe and welcoming home for the children. He also used his connections to find mentors and tutors for the children, helping them to achieve their academic goals. He organized field trips and outings, giving them opportunities to experience the world beyond the orphanage walls. Clara continued to provide love, support, and guidance to the children, nurturing their spirits and helping them to believe in themselves. She organized activities, taught them valuable life skills, and provided them with a sense of family and belonging. Together, Arthur and Clara created a loving and supportive environment where the children could thrive. They provided them with the resources they needed to succeed and the encouragement they needed to pursue their dreams. They became a beacon of hope in a community that had long been forgotten. And in the process, Arthur began to transform from an arrogant millionaire into a compassionate and caring human being. He rediscovered the joy of giving, the power of connection, and the true meaning of love. Arthur's transformation was remarkable. He stopped boasting about his wealth and started using it to make a real difference in the world. He sold his diamond-studded shoes and donated the money to the orphanage. He traded his fancy sports car for a more practical vehicle that could transport the children on field trips. He even started wearing simpler clothes, realizing that true style wasn't about designer labels but about character and kindness. He learned to listen more and talk less, valuing the opinions and perspectives of others. He became a more humble and compassionate person, recognizing that everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, deserved to be treated with respect and dignity. He mended his friendship with Tom, apologizing for dismissing his concerns and thanking him for being a true friend. Tom, relieved to see Arthur's transformation, readily forgave him, and their bond grew even stronger. Arthur and Clara's love deepened, strengthened by their shared commitment to helping others. They realized that their love wasn't about money or status, but about mutual respect, shared values, and a deep connection of the heart. Arthur finally understood that true happiness wasn't about accumulating wealth, but about making a positive impact on the world. He learned that love was more important than money, that kindness was more valuable than possessions, and that true success was measured not by what you had, but by what you gave. He and Clara continued to work tirelessly for the orphanage, ensuring that the children had everything they needed to thrive. They became role models for the community, inspiring others to give back and make a difference. And so, the arrogant millionaire who was deceived by the person he loved most ended up being the one who was truly transformed, learning that the greatest riches in life are not found in a bank account, but in the love, compassion, and kindness that we share with others. He lived happily ever after with Clara, surrounded by the children they loved, proving that even the most arrogant heart can be changed by love and understanding.